have you. And we hope that the time we'll be spending here together this morning will be one that is memorable and enjoyable, one that will be able to dissect and look critically into the issues of petroleum subsidy. This morning, the front page of the Vanguard newspaper in Nigeria reports that there is a 26 million decrease in the consumption of petroleum products in Nigeria because of the removal of subsidy. In the weeks ahead, we have been monitoring the reaction to petroleum subsidy across of Nigeria and across of Africa, from riots in Cameroon to protests in Niger and Benin Republic over the removal of the petroleum subsidies in Nigeria. So we begin to wonder how is the removal of petroleum subsidy in Nigeria is affecting other fellow African states. This morning, we have a petroleum economist, Dr. Mohammed Salaudeen, whose PhD is centered around petroleum economics, and he has had over 20 years working experience in the petroleum sector in Nigeria, and currently he's an executive director in one of the leading petroleum companies in Nigeria. We've brought him here this morning to dissect and unravel this mystery for us. I will not take your time. We would like to know precisely what is the impact of petroleum subsidy on Nigeria and the poor people of Nigeria. We also would like to listen to him so that we learn what exactly is this subsidy? How does it affect us? For how long has it been a hindrance in our economy? Or is it a positive in our economy? Its removal, what impact will it have for us in the immediate term, in the medium term, as well as in the long term? These are the things that we'll be discussing this morning. After his presentation, we will have question and answer sessions, and we will have a complete robust discussion about this so that we understand fully and have a knowledge of what the rather than from the bus stop and analysts, we'll be able to hear from an expert. So without wasting much of your time, I'll hand you over to Dr. Mohammed Salaudeen on this topic. Thank you and good morning once again.
Thank you very much, distinguished ladies and gentlemen. Thank you also, Dr. Jibril, for taking us through the initial brief. And I say good morning to all. I'd like us to go through this thing with our minds open as we start this presentation. Our minds to be open in the sense that we'll be very, very liberal. So that by the time we're thinking, we'll now begin to listen attentively. We're going to run this business together because we are all in this business as stakeholders, because everybody's going to be affected by whatever decision the government takes or the government have taken so far, and the additional decision that will be taken into the future, all in the name of growing the economy, growing individual earnings and income, and building the economy that will be better for us into the future. I'd like to go straight into my slides so that we can have an idea of what we're going to share together. I guess you can hear me and you can see my slide.
Very clear.
Very well, sir.
Thank you. So we have how to run this presentation is going to be very, very simple. Some of the highlight that we have is that we're going to look at how it all started, just like Dr. Mohammed said. Let's see the beginning. How did this subsidy start? How did this petrol thing start? And from when? We now see where we are today. Then we now look at the price of petrol. We look at the old price, we look at the new price, and what is it? There's a major determinant of this price of petrol. We're going to also look at subsidy, what we understand by subsidy and the expenditure. How much have we spent on subsidy as a nation? And compare it to what we do in other parts of the world, how much are other people spending on subsidy, and where we are. We look at sub-Saharan Africa, we look at the global, we look at the middle and medium income countries of the world. Then we're going to look at who benefits from petrol subsidy. Who are those people that benefit from this? Is it the poor? Is it the rich? Is it large? Is it Nigerian? Is it non-Nigerians? We're going to look at details. Then we're going to look at the impact of petrol subsidy on the Nigerian economy. How has it impacted us? Has it benefited us? Have we been benefiting? Has it been a cost? We're going to look at all this. Then we're going to look at Nigerian oil and non-oil revenue, because as you spend money, you need to generate so much money. So what has given us more revenue in this country? We're going to look at this from quite maybe 10, 15 years ago, and look at it and compare it with what we have today in terms of revenue generation. Have we been making so much money from this, or we have not been making? And what is the implication of what we have? Then we are going to look for justification for petrol subsidy removal. Government has removed it, there's no doubt about it. What's the justification? Why did they remove it? What are we going to benefit from it? And what's next after the removal of this subsidy? Nation. So that is the way we're going to go. So let's look at the beginning. We all know that Nigeria have a long history of fuel subsidy dating back to the 1970s, days of the oil boom. The government introduced this subsidy that time because they need to subsidize key commodities such as the petrol, the kerosene, the diesel, and so many other petroleum products, including even the aviation fuel, airline operators to operate their plane and take people from one location to the other. And this is because the government is trying to then genuinely to ensure that the residents and citizens and Nigerians enjoy this product, because we have them in abundance. We could produce so much then, and we have so much money then, and what do we do with them? So that is how the country started, and the intention was good. Then Nigerians believed that, look, that's the way for us to get our share of our own national cake. So we were sharing national cake. We're enjoying it in 1970s, 1980s, 1990s. But looking at the figures and numbers, has it benefited us? Has it been very, very helpful? We're going to look at that as we go down. So suddenly, PMS, premium motor spirit, which we call petrol generally, fuel subsidies have really benefited neighboring countries as against benefiting us. We're going to look at the figures and numbers. It benefits also rent seekers, people that are playing games with this, and the rich. It makes a lot of rich people richer. It makes them even wealthy, as opposed to the poor. So the poor continue to suffer, and the rich continue to get better, and the rent seekers that are playing games, the middlemen, are making more money. We can't push for development while at the same time insisting on substantial expenditure on inefficient consumption of such subsidy. This subsidy, this petrol that we have subsidized, subsidy means allowing people to buy product or goods at a lower than the original cost. So the difference between the cost of the product and the final cost at which we buy these products is being borne by government to ease life for its people. That is what subsidy is all about. And this subsidy, for information, not just on petroleum product only, but then we're looking at petroleum product now, and particularly for diesel, for kerosene, the subsidy has been removed a long time ago. But now we have to leave petrol because quite a lot of Nigerians are supposed to, I use the word supposed to be enjoying subsidy on petroleum product. But we found out that no, it's not the case. So the costs of combined expedition, health, education, and infrastructure is not even up to the cost of subsidy. So subsidy is now much more than, to the extent that we have to go and acquire some debts. Country have to go and borrow for it to be able to meet its expectation. Let's look at the price of petrol. If you look at the graph on your left, the lower part of the graph is showing not central, not east, not west, as all those acronyms. NC, NE, NW, not east, not west. These are the price before the adjustments when the new president, the day new president 2 weeks ago. 190 for Net Central is the average price. This is the average price across the region. From 190 jumps to 539. From 129 in Northeast, it jumps to 552 per liter. These are per liter cost, price of product. So as at 31st of May, that's what we have. Price now change. So on 29th, our new president announced the change in price or change in the removal of the fuel subsidy. Immediately, the price change, trust Nigerians. So Northwest 194 to 541, and like that, up to the Southwest. Actually, if you look at this price differential change, the Southwest is the lowest at 498, an average price of the product. You will observe that in the last 2 days, the price have also gone up a little bit more. Those that are selling for around 88 in Lagos, the likes of Total, the likes of Mobil, have added additional amount to it. I'll tell you why as we go on. So we look at the current price of NNPC, and these are NNPC, Nigerian NNPC limited price. Then we look at the graph, the diagram on your right. This gives us an idea of which part of the country has the highest in terms of numbers of costs. Look at Borno, Yobe. Those locations have very huge costs in terms of the price of the product. They have the highest, Borno and Yobe. Then the least costs of this product is in Lagos, where majority of us that are listening are today. It means the reason for that is the distance between Lagos, where we have the ports and the depots, and those locations where we have huge cost of transportation that takes hours to get to. So it's 1,000, 2,000 kilometers and above to get to those locations. So it's additional cost of transportation, because the subsidy includes, so that is why in the heading, subsidies. So it's not just on the petrol alone, it also includes logistic, storage, all were subsidized before by government. All those things have been removed. Then we have a challenge. The challenge will be, what next? So we have looked at this price now across the country. Let's look at the annual subsidy expenditure. How much do we spend on subsidy between 2005 and 2021 as a nation? Let's get the figures, because some of the things we trust as a country in terms of figures and data and statistics is from international organizations like IMF, World Bank. For your information, most of these charts and diagrams are actually from IMF, CBN, World Bank. That's where we pick these figures and numbers for, so that we'll be sure we can trust it. The IMF has estimated that Nigeria's PMS subsidies amounted to 1.894 trillion in 2021. I want you to take cognizance of this figure, and that's about 38% of our revenue. Revenue then was 4.98. You made 4.98 as revenue, and you spent 1.89. That's 38% of the entire revenue that you made in 2021. Let's come down a little bit. These costs in 2021 rose to 4.6 trillion. Look at, jump from 1.8 to 4.6 trillion in 2022. So which means out of our revenue, we spent a closer amount of 33% of Nigeria, 9.4 trillion oil revenue. That's what we make from oil, and we spent 33 trillion just on subsidy alone, which means we just wasted it. Remember in our previous discussion, we said, look, the people that are benefiting from it are rent seekers, smugglers, very wealthy people, and our neighbors, the other neighboring countries, which means Nigerians are not actually benefiting from the subsidy. And we've been doing it year in, year out. So that's the implication. So who benefits from Nigerians' petrol subsidy? Let's look at who are those. Let's look at the figures and the numbers. So where does the petrol subsidy go? The first thing I want us to look at is the diagram on your right, on the right of this screen. That sums it up. Look at those countries. By creating a large price differential between Nigeria and its neighbors, the PMS subsidy is incentivizing smugglers, Nigerian small goods products to this country. Niger, Chad, Cameroon, Togo, Republic of Benin, and Ghana. We take our product there and sell it at this amount. This statistics was given when we have product at like 165 in Nigeria. So when product was 165 in Nigeria, it was 457 in Cameroon. You can see that it's very profitable. We have borders. Look at all that. These are the countries that borders Nigeria, Republic of Benin. The entire Republic of Benin, from the beginning to the end, from north to south, is bordered by Nigeria. So you can go into the Republic of Benin anyhow. Between 165 and 379, you buy 165 in Nigeria, you go and sell 379. You can see rent seekers are making money. They are milking Nigerian economy indirectly. That's what it means. The same thing with Niger Republic, same thing with Chad, and same thing with Cameroon. The poorest 40% consume just 3% of PMS in Nigeria. When we say poorest 40%, we don't mean poor Nigerians, which means out of the 63% of Nigerians that are poor, there's only 40% of them that even have access to these 3%. Because most Nigerians that are poor don't have access to even the PMS, the petrol. That is where the petrol subsidy goes. And you remember recently, the thing changed. Let's look at it now. Who is subsidizing who? Who is Nigeria subsidizing? Are we subsidizing Nigeria or we're subsidizing our neighbors? Look at this graph. In selected West African countries. Look at Guinea. Nigeria today, the price of petrol, especially those in Lagos, is about 488. In Guinea, immediately we change the price of the petrol in Nigeria, it jumped to 853 naira equivalent per liter. 754.6 on average in Congo, 734.9 in Cameroon, 651.3 in Republic of Benin, 608.9 in Gabon. And while it is in Nigeria, just 526. This is an average price in Nigeria. Look at every other country, have it higher. The moment we change our own, their own multiplied, even by 2. That was why in the opening statement, why did we change our price in Nigeria and they were demonstrating and rioting in Cameroon? What's their problem with our own? Okay, here noise at the background, can we check that? So these are some of the issues that determines who's subsidizing who. Have a look at that. Let's look at the impact of petrol subsidy on Nigerian economy. How do we feel? How are we feeling? How is this subsidy that is mean that few people are benefiting, poor people not benefiting, smugglers are benefiting, our neighbors are benefiting? How is it impacting our economy as a nation? Let's look at it. Let's look at the implication of subsidy on critical sector. Let's start with that. I want you to look at this graph very, very well. This diagram very well. It's important that we look at it very, very well. On the left side, we have 3.5 trillion naira. That was government spend on 2022 budget on education, health, and infrastructure development of Nigeria. Education, healthcare, and infrastructure. Nigeria spent 3.5 trillion. Look at fuel subsidy, what we spent, 4.4 trillion on subsidy alone 2022, which means the subsidy consumption, the subsidy spends allocation by federal government is actually more than education, health, and infrastructure put together. So much wastage. Then we have looked at where money goes. Let's look at this, since we're looking at how this fuel subsidy impact the economy of Nigeria. Let's look at GDP growth trends between 2015 and 2022. What's our gross domestic product in terms of growth trend? What is it like? The diagram on your left will show you how it has moved. That's average growth we have on yearly basis and quarterly basis. Actually, these are quarterly basis from 2015 till first quarter of this year, when it's up at 2.3. So the first quarter of 2023, the growth of GDP was just 2.31%, which means in terms of production, aggregate production of the nation like ours, that what we produce, or we go all out, work, and produce from different sectors, from every sector of the economy. In terms of production put together is 2.3%. That's what we grew year on year. Looking at the first quarter of 2022 and first quarter of 2021, that's our goods. which means it has slowed down 3.5% in the fourth quarter of 2022. Let's look at the service sector remain the major driver of the growth, which means it's no longer oil. It's the service sector that's growing our GDP. 4.35% of the non-oil sector grew 2.77 in first quarter 2023. If you compare it with what happened in 2022, which is 4.84 and 6.08, as we found in first quarter of 2022. So what I'm saying in essence is that our growth in terms of production and development is moving away from oil and gas to other sectors of the economy, because most of the money, things that are enhancing growth in oil sector are no longer growing. We no longer produce oil like we used to produce in terms of figures and numbers of crude per day. We dropped so much. It's only Nigeria on record during the price hike of crude, during the crisis in Russia and whatever, when so many nations in the world were making money and price rose up to more than $100 per barrel. It's only Nigeria that wasn't making money then, because we weren't growing in terms of growth, because some of our brothers are stealing the crude, disrupting the pipeline, diverting the products. A lot of arbitrage is going on. A lot of leading is going on in the business, which means most of us didn't allow Nigeria to grow in terms of oil production, which used to be the mainstay of the Nigerian economy. In terms of adding value to revenue, it used to be very, very high. But look at our growth. Declined, moved from oil to some other. We're going to look at the details as we go on into this. But what this is telling us that in terms of growth of our GDP, the trend for oil seems to be declining. And we're not growing in terms of economy. So let's look at the justification for economic growth. We want to look at the challenge. At 70% Nigerians' revenue of GDP ratio is among the 5 lowest in the world. We're looking at GDP growth in relation to our revenue. GDP growth in relation to our revenue. If you look at the graph on your left, the diagram on your left, the green that you see there is the GDP, our revenue and the GDP in terms of color. So while other countries are growing or are very close in terms of ratio between revenue to GDP, Nigeria is 6.9% to 13.5%. The SSA you see there is Sub-Saharan Africa. In Sub-Saharan Africa, even poor countries in Africa, that ordinarily Nigeria should be bigger than in terms of.
Sorry,
hello. Even countries, Sub-Saharan Africa, that countries where Nigeria is supposed to be growing faster than, you can see their GDP growth ratio to their revenue is very, very close. 20.1 to 21.5, while our own is 6.9 to 13.5. So while we're growing our GDP, our revenue is not coming up. Then low medium income countries, that is global. Some low medium countries in the world, apart from Sub-Saharan Africa. Sub-Saharan Africa are poor countries in Africa, majorly in West Africa. Then low and medium income countries, countries like Venezuela, Nigeria, South American countries, a few European countries that are poor are in this clique. They also have their revenue growth very close to their GDP, 23.9 to 24.7, which means they are producing so much and they're making so much money from what they produce. That's what this means. In comparing this, it means what you produce, are you making from money from what you're producing? That's the implication. And if you look at it in the world, you can actually see that in the world, people are making more money from what they produce in terms of figures and numbers. 24.2 as against 22.8, also very close, and even much more than. So what are the main reasons for this? These are the areas that we need to be focused and concentrate and discuss this slide very well. Our economic and sector challenges include: one, 70 billion worth of investment lost in the petroleum industry since 2011. Also due to absence of the PIA. PIA is the Petroleum Industry Acts, because there are no law that shapes how the industry can grow and we practice and incorporate such a way that people will see much more investment coming to the country, and we can grow our GDP and grow our revenue at the same time. So we lost so much investment, over 70 billion US dollar were lost because the industry wasn't stable, not properly guided by law. Insecurity is another. We lost 46.16 billion US dollars to insecurity, coup theft between 2009 and 2020, which means we're stealing our own resources. Some few of us are stealing the resources. We are causing a lot of insecurity. And in the process of causing this insecurity, disrupting activities in that region where we produce oil, people are stealing the oil. So we're not just fighting for nothing. The name of the fight is that we are fighting for the people of Niger Delta. But that is not true. What is actually happening is you use fighting for people of Niger Delta at the face, and at the background, we're stealing the oil. That's what it means. So that is why at some point we went as low as producing just 800,000 barrels per day, when we have opportunities to produce over 2 to 3 million barrels. More than that is being stolen. More than what we produce is being stolen. Again, 10.7 billion lost annually to subsidy and inefficiency associated with purchase, distribution, and sales of PMS. PMS is the petrol, which means we lost 10.7 billion annually, first on subsidy and inefficiency in the system, because we're not purchasing right. We're not buying this product right. Some of the guys that are in charge of purchasing this product are playing games. Again, governance and regulation concerns have eroded investment confidence, just like we said in point number 2. So investors are no longer confident in doing business under this environment where we have so much unguided approach to doing things. There's no law guiding the way we do, and the taxes are very heavy, and the community is not having fun with the people that want to invest. So people have to run away. So the investors left, and we lost so much money to that. So these have reduced the energy sector contribution to the growth of our economy. Due to deprive the citizens of Nigeria, especially the needed infrastructure and social amenities. Because of all these 4 other things mentioned above, it deprived citizens of the necessary infrastructure and social amenities. We're supposed to have a lot of hospitals working instead of going abroad or looking for alternative medicine. Us wouldn't have gone on strike if we have a lot of money pumped into education. We wouldn't have gone on strike for like 8 months that they were on strike, sometimes fast. Our university wouldn't have been, we have turned the university to just library now where people just go read and come out. No research, no growth, no development, no infrastructure. Even if you're a farmer or you work somewhere, bringing your produce from the farm to the major roads and to major cities and towns are very difficult because there's no infrastructure. So these are the challenges that affected our economic growth the last few years. Let's now look at GDP, we have looked at revenue, let's look at inflation and subsidy removal. Inflation, we all know, affects everybody. It has thrown so many of us into poverty as a nation. The poverty level has grown from 40 to 60, over 60%. It is estimated by World Bank that over 133 million Nigerians are poor. And they call it multidimensional poverty. By multidimensional poverty, it means that people are poor in different ways. Not just poor because they don't have food. So there's food inflation, right? They don't longer eat 3 times a day. People eat just 2. Even now, some people eat just once in a day. So they make sure their breakfast to lunch is blended towards afternoon. That's when they eat till tomorrow again. People don't have decent accommodation, don't have good roads. So poverty in all different dimensions. So let's look at inflation and subsidy removal. So our inflation jumped. As at April 2023, it has jumped to 22.22. So the World Bank projects that a one-off adjustment will lead to higher inflation, which is what we have done now. A one-off adjustments of the subsidy will lead to further inflation. This will come down, begin to come down by 2024, which means the inflation rate we are seeing at 22.22 now is going to go up. So by the time we do month-on-month inflation figures, next month, we're going to see a jump, because inflation is determined very simply by the price of what you buy. If you buy a pen for 10 naira last month, how much are you buying the pen now? If it is 1 naira, it is 10 naira before and it's now 11 naira. So there's a jump of 10%. That's what it means. That's how it's simply calculated, looking at its surface. The World Bank also forecasts that the increase of about 60% over June 2023 inflation will bring it to about 30, which means it has been forecasted that there will be 6% over what we have in June. Because in mid-2024, however, it is forecast that this rate will drop significantly. You know, like economics will say that every other thing being equal. If we go at the pace we are going the last 2 weeks, which what the president has been doing, harmonizing the rates of exchange rates, and so many other things that happen in terms of pricing, if we go on without stopping, on being focused with the advisory team, it is highly likely that by next year, we start seeing a better inflation figure and we'll begin to enjoy a little bit more than we will be enjoying for the rest of this year. Also, the CBN capacity to manage pressure is a major factor that will determine whether inflation is going to go up or not. Because the monetary policy rates of MPR, that's monetary policy rate, that's the rate at which central banks give money to commercial banks to give out loan. It has moved from 17.5 to 18.5 actual percent. That's what we have now. It has been difficult for CBN to contain runaway inflation, very, very difficult. And this has been long, not just in Nigeria, it's been everywhere since the COVID and Ukraine war started. The inflation rate has been affecting a lot of other countries. But let's come back home. Unfortunately, CBN also is in turmoil. And we begin to see how CBN has been managed until recently, and how we've been struggling and been lying to ourselves about figures and numbers. So inflation remains stubbornly high at elevated double digits in February 2016, when various factors, including some of the factors that contributed to this high inflation, international food prices during the Ukraine war, you remember the price of which went up. The multiple exchange rate, which the government is almost scrapping now, trying to come back. The FMDQ rate as at yesterday has jumped from 723 to 656 yesterday. So the capital outflow pressure is also a reason for high inflation, which means a lot of people are moving their money away from the Nigerian system. So those monies will be coming back when we begin to put laws in place, when PIAs begin to take shape and people are beginning to trust our economy. So this trust that we need. Then insecurity. If we begin to secure the country both from the north and the south, then we can begin to enjoy a lower inflation figure as against being calculated. So subsidy removal, these are things that could change, and it's going to be changing for good as we go on in details. So the summary of this slide is that the subsidy removal is going to change inflation from what we're seeing now. Yes, initially it's going to be higher, then later, subsequently, we begin to come down from next year. Because some of the policies we are putting in place, integrating a lot of small parastatals within the petroleum subsidy, merge them, NMDPR to PEF, Petrol Equalization Fund, and the rest, begin to merge them so that get people to do serious job instead of wasting a lot of energy on frivolities and things that are not very germane. The central bank being put in shape to perform more professionally in terms of banking activities, then ensuring production capacity is developed in every sector, ensuring we produce more in terms of, we have seen increase in number of production in the last 1 week, oil, Don't know what the wonder is, but it's like the security is being tightened. And we now begin to see production figures of our crude jumping to over 1.2 million barrels per day, which is very, very significant when you look at it in terms of numbers and figures, prices today. So we have looked at inflation, we have looked at GDP, we have looked at the subsidy removal, how much revenue and who benefits from this subsidy. Let's look at Nigerian revenue. The money we make as a country, where does it come from? The money we make as a nation, where does it come from? I want us to look at this slide from three major angles. And this table shows, you will see some initial light blue color. We see A and B, you now see a color summation. Then the orange-like summation, then the green, then the final one. This slide is divided into oil and gas revenue. Revenue we make from oil and gas. And the second part is non-oil and other revenue, which these are ways where Nigeria makes money. Between 1999 and 2006, 1999 and 2006, if you add up together, in the oil revenue, we made 16.9 in terms of a percentage of money that we make. 16.9 trillion in terms of non, then percentage is 34.5. Then go to non-oil revenue, 32.143, which means 65, which means between 1999 and 2006, we are actually making our money as a country more from oil, from non-oil and other revenue that comes into the country. We are coming somewhere. So the total for non-oil, total for oil and non-oil at that time is 49.05 in terms of total revenue. Then let's go to the next one. C and D, the total gives us, let's look at the percentage. Let's do the figures. The oil revenue jumped to 70%, from 34% in the one A and B to 70%, 70.8, 71% actually, if you approximate. 71% of our revenue from oil and gas revenue jumped from 34% between 1999 and 2006 to 70% between 2007 to 2014. That tells us that oil and gas revenue has moved from 34% in terms of contribution to 70%, while non-oil revenue jumped to 29%, dropped to 29%, because our production volume of oil has gone up and the prices were good during those periods. Then E and F, oil revenue dropped up until last year, between 2015 and last year. This captured the period of President Buhari. Between 2015 and 2022, contribution of oil and gas revenue to the Nigerian economy dropped to 45.9%. And non-oil moved to 54%, which means other businesses, we have seen entertainment, we have seen other services by Nigerians, agriculture, are now taking over oil. Why? Because of those factors we have looked at: insecurity, stealing of our own thefts, and a lot of other vices that has contributed to this, including the subsidy we're spending, wasting money, because when we make the money, we spend it. So the revenue are not making sense in terms of numbers. So in all, we've seen, if you add up from 1999 to 2022, add up all from 1999 to date, since the beginning of democracy, we've seen oil revenue contribute 51% and non-oil revenue 49%, which means a lot of reasoning will come into this. It tells you the government is not growing the oil sector. There's not been any growth in the sector because the growth is not giving us the result, which means the non-oil sector actually growing. But have grown the agri sector, we've grown other sectors of the economy, entertainment sector have grown massively, bringing money. Service sector have grown so much in terms of consultancy, added so much to the Nigerian economy because our average GDP per annum is over 500 billion. So if that is GDP figure and non-oil is contributing 49%, you can see where our production is coming from, our growth and revenue is coming from, as against oil, which means oil is becoming less relevant to our development as a nation. Summary here is that oil at 51%, if you look at the period between 2007 and 2014, oil was actually 70%, now dropped to 51% in oil. If you look at oil, why non-oil contribution to the Nigerian revenue comes 49%. It tells us that it's a lot of divestments, people not coming, investors not interested in oil anymore. We know that Mobil, Shell, and even some Total have to go out of our midstream, and they took their business elsewhere. That's why the likes of Mobil on the downstream have to sell their whatever to NIPCO and now turn to themselves to 11 PLC. Total is winding down business activities in downstream, concentrating much more on the midstream and upstream. And even heavy activities on the upstream are also going down. So they are putting their money where they are more comfortable, where they are more secure, where more returns are made. Because even if you do business and you are in USD, it's difficult for you to repatriate your fund. So those are some of the factors that are chasing people away and affecting our revenue in the long run. So let's look at oil revenue and non-oil revenue contribution. This must have been explained while talking about that particular table. So I just say, the summary is to say that between 2019 and 2022, insecurity, theft, oil bunkering, and vandalization of our energy sectors as the main challenge. That's why we're not making money. The government efforts, what has been giving us so much money is taxes and customs and duties, and like I talk about, service industries, entertainment, agriculture. These are the areas where we make so much money. Our taxes have actually grown tremendously. Last government concentrated so much on taxing everything and becoming so notorious, taxing corporate organizations, and they're very, very efficient when it comes to taxing people. So over this period, oil revenue contributed 43%, non-oil. Non-oil contributed 57%, which means the non-oil revenue increases significantly over a period of time. This I've explained in my previous slide. So why do we need to improve our revenue? It's important that we look at this. Why? One of the reasons is that if you look at the point at the right, in terms of infrastructure, providing social amenities for Nigerians, building things that are current rates and capital spending, in terms of capital rate, we are 300 years behind. So it's going to take us over 300 years to close the infrastructure gap at the current rate that we're going. So we need to more than double up. So we need to do things 3 times the rate at which, 300 times the rate we're doing it now. We're also be able to do it in 100 years, which means everybody listening to me on this platform, their great-great-grandchildren will still meet a lot of things undone. There's no 2 ways about it. And in terms of human development as a nation, we're one of the lowest in the world. We're ranked 163 out of 191 countries in the world. So we're very close to the worst. So in terms of human development index is measured by education, health, and infrastructure by United Nations. That's the basis. What is the quality of people's education? Are people being really educated in the right kind of education? Are people getting health needs that they require for them to survive? We know the average age of average Nigerians is about 52 to 53. Just 1 year between a man and a woman in Nigeria today. So if you are more than, listen to me, and you are more than 53, you are one of the few Nigerians that are lucky to have beaten this. It is likely that you are not poor. That's why you are still alive. That's a joke anyway. So what I'm saying in essence is that in terms of human development index in the world, according to the United Nations, This source of these slides is actually from World Bank, got it from World Bank. So Nigerians also write 45% of Nigerians do not have access to electricity on grid. We don't have access, 45% of Nigerians. Whether the electricity comes and goes is another thing. But 45%, they don't have access at all. They live in the dark. This same country. While some other countries have excess electricity and ask people when you're going to work, just turn on your power. In some cities and countries in Europe. So we also have 133 million Nigerians, or 63% of the population are multidimensionally poor. I've explained this earlier. Multidimensionally poor. They have poor health. They are poor in health because they can't take care of their health. They are poor in food because they eat 1 or 2 times only a day. I'm not talking about people that are dieting. It's people that don't have money to eat. In terms of education, they can't send their children to school. Thank God this government is saying that they're going to give student loan. So these are the areas. And these are the reasons why we need improved revenue to be able to take care of Nigerians. We have looked at that graph at the left a while ago. It's a little bit of difference. Nigeria still remains the same. Sub-Saharan Africa, very close in terms of the GDP rich revenue to revenue growth, revenue to GDP ratio in the world. And see our GDP top, but our revenue is so small. And we need much more revenue to be able to bridge all these gaps. Because it's a major challenge for us as a nation. So we've looked at so many things. Look at price of petrol, we look at petrol, we looked at the history, we look at how subsidy affects in terms of pricing. Our neighbors are eating our lunch, are eating our breakfast. They were almost eating our dinner until 2 weeks ago. When we said, okay, let's get out of this trouble. So we look at GDP, we look at how subsidy affects inflation, how it affects our GDP, how we need more revenue. So what's the justification for petrol subsidy removal? Why do we have to remove it? Reason for petrol subsidy removal, the one that makes sense. Just look at the World Bank and IMF. That's where I got these details from. If you look at average global expenditure GDP, it's about 30% of GDP. Expenditure to GDP, that's comparing your expenditure, what you spend to what you make in terms of goods, production, not revenue now. At Nigeria, we just 13.1% GDP in terms of expenditure to GDP, just 13%. And our own rank, one of the lowest in the world. So we spend average of $23, for instance. I want us to listen very carefully and look at this together. Nigerians spend $23 on every Nigerian on education. We spend $23 on every Nigerian in terms of education, same money that we pay, compared to $32 in Mali. Look at Mali and look at Nigeria. Mali spends $32 on every citizen, and we spend $23. You know the GDP of Mali? The GDP of Mali is not up to half of the internally generated revenue of River State. I repeat, the GDP, total production, in terms of revenue they make from Mali, is not up to what they make internally generated revenue of River State. Yet they spend $32 on the education of every Malian, and we spend 23. Ghana spent $88, and South Africa spent $350. That is where we have found ourselves. So we spend more money educating our people. We just allow our people. So we are losing in terms of Human Development Index. That is why we're low, one of the lowest in the world. Even in Sub-Saharan Africa, we're lower than the Sub-Saharan African average. Let's go back. One out of every 5 of the world's out-of-school children is a Nigerian. If every 5 people in the world are out of school. One of them must be a Nigerian. So because we have over 14 million children out of school. So with this, we cannot continue to keep the subsidy and be feeding some people that are already fat. On health, Nigeria spends just $15. So how are we going to be healthy? So the public infrastructure spending in Nigeria is actually very low, just 1.7% of GDP compared to 2.3%, 3.2%, and 6% of GDP in Ghana, Egypt, and Kenya. We already talk about access to electricity in Nigeria, which is 55.4%, lower than 85%, or roughly 86% in Ghana. And in Egypt, 100%, everybody in Egypt has access to power. So those are some of the reasons why we must remove this subsidy for us to be able to live a better life as a citizen and for country to grow. But we need leaders that are very, very strong, very bullish, that will drive this process. We hope that this government will be able to do that, and we hope that we are going to have me and you that will support this government to deliver on this, because they need the support of every Nigerian for this to be achieved. Some of us listening may not be able to enjoy it as much as we want, but can we have our children, our generation to come, or more larger Nigerians too? Can we get more people out of poverty? 63%, 133 million Nigerians are poor. The only way we can move people out of multidimensional poverty is for government to be able to take some hard decisions now that will pay some of us, and for other people to enjoy. That's the essence of humanity. So after subsidy removal, what do we do? This is very, very key. We have advocated for subsidy removal. Government has agreed to remove subsidy. We have looked at the implication over, look at our production, we have looked at our revenue, nothing seems to happen. We look at inflation, we have campaigned, we have talked so much about it. So after this subsidy removal, what will happen? So we must, that's why I say the government must be very, very strong, very solid, and very, very bullish to deliver this. It is important that we must the financing of fiscal deficit must be very, very strong. We should reduce the kind of, we should spend within our means or raise much more revenue so that we can develop other areas. So the shortfall in government income should be able to match. So we shouldn't be having deficits budgets, or overspending budget, or going for other ways and means like the previous government did, looking for shortcut to get money using the CBN. And CBN now begin to borrow Nigerian money. And NNPC begin to finance subsidy for government and give money to government. Yeah, it's a short-term measure, but it's not paying us, so we should do something else. So we'll be able to develop and grow our fiscal deficits to positive. We should be able to also do concessional financing for the rural and urban poor. There should be a way that the government would develop such that those that are poor should be able to support their activities for them to become much more productive and add more value to the GDP. There should be mass transit schools to support transportation, because the impact of the first subsidy removal is going to be on fuel, on petrol, so that people can have access to easier or cheaper transport, affordable transport. We are aware that the Office of the Vice President have been doing a lot with major stakeholders in the business. We know the oil marketers have been trying a lot, especially the major marketers and the depot owners and they call DAPMAN. They've come together to provide support in this. Every other group, like the group of bankers, should be able to come together. Manufacturing Association of Nigeria should bring their members together to be able to support this scheme so that we can have so much. Locally, some state governments that are strong should really support this idea so that we can move from using even petrol to gas and begin to mix gas with diesel, or where you have a combination of both to ease transportation at a lower cost and to support government activities. If this government drives this through, it's going to see a lot more ease for Nigerians, leveraging new and greener transportation technologies. Beyond petrol and diesel, maybe we begin to use some other device to to power transportation. That's what we greener transportation technologies like solar and some others. Leveraging private sector financing for increased utilization of gas and greener transportation. So supporting or taking advantage of whatever is happening in the private sector to increase activities within this area, gas and greener fuel, to be able to support. What this is saying is that government should be able to use private sector to finance all these activities, using green energy to power different sectors, manufacturing, including productions and even transportation, to make things easy and easy use of fossil fuel. Utilization of electronic voucher subsidy system. Yeah, electronic voucher subsidy system could be used if some people's vouchers, especially workers, so that the transportation will be at a lower cost, since government may not be able to increase everybody's salary to match whatever change in inflation that's going to affect their disposable income. To real-time tracking of petrol across border using nanotechnology. It is important that we track whatever activities is going on now. Just like they just mentioned at the opening statement by Dr. Jibril. In terms of consumption on daily now, it has dropped by an average of 26 million liters per day. It's on the front of the papers today. So, which means after tracking the consumption per day, we have found out that it has dropped. There's been argument over what we consume in terms of fuel per day. NNPC told us it can range up to 60 million liters per day at some points. At some point, you begin to wonder what volume of this. So we realize now that majority of what we say we consume actually go to our neighbors by smugglers and an enemy of the country. Unfortunately, our people in different sectors begin to complain and talk about marketers are the one doing it, marketers are the one doing it. When in actual fact, we have seen that they are actually more smugglers than marketers of the petroleum product. Whatever it is, it's important to track this so that we know what we consume. Accelerating investments in infrastructure projects and public work. There's no gainsaying. It is important when we develop infrastructure. And public works must come in place for things to go. This is what brings activities to small and medium scale industries. Individuals, small entrepreneurs, if you have infrastructure, if you have advantage of it, they will be able to leverage on whatever infrastructure that you have in place for them to invest their little money, to do their little business, because small scale business are usually the drivers of every economy in the world, not big businesses. Clearing Nigerian National Petroleum Products, NNPC, limited arrears. NNPC have a lot of arrears. It must be cleared. Certainly, it should be negotiated so that we pay in bits and pieces, because you can't do it lump sum. So these are some of the things that should happen after subsidy removal. If government can do this and many more. Luckily, you see, I see this present government, I see the president-elect's documents by the advisory team telling us the plan. If you have somebody, leaders that can hit the ground running and done a research, done a job before even starting the administrative work, before being sworn in, program, processes are already in place to deliver. That's what I've seen from this government. We hope and pray that this continues. That will be all. Thank you very much. I'd like to take questions.
Thank you very much, Dr. Mohammed Salaudeen. This is very, very, very engaging. And honestly, for me, it's what's that I've been saying. But I know out there we have to keep it open now. And so let's please get questions. You can type in your question, and that makes it easier for us, for everyone to see. Please don't raise up your hand for just the question. Type it in so that so that it's in order. If everybody has to speak, it will be chorus and it will be difficult for us to track the question. So type in your questions, and we allow Dr. Mohammed to respond to them. Thank you. There's a question already in, and somebody was asking for a copy of the slide of the presentation. We will send it to all the emails that have registered. All the registered email will send the slide to you straight. That we promise. And you'll be getting it before Tuesday. The questioner is asking, how do we get to publicize this particular presentation, and how do we put it out there? Well, we are 42 here. If everybody share with 10 people, that'll be 420, if I'm not mistaken. And that's one way to go. I think that way it will work better. The second part of the question is about when do we have another program? The Nungu Business School have regular webinars, and we have a timetable for that. So if you look for it, just stay in touch with us on all of our social media handles, and you'll see when we send in the rollout of the programs that we have for webinars on a yearly basis. I also will suggest that by the time we're sending out this particular slides to you, we will also include the possible date for the next webinars, but to also be on this topic. We choose different topic that affects the nation and the economy, and we discuss on them. Okay, so I guess this is for Dr. Mohammed. There's a question there from Messi. Please, you want to take a look at it, and please take it. Thank you. There's another one from Lukman Odeni and Bashir Abdul Karim from Jimafari. There's another question. Amit Bakari also has a question there. You may also want to look at that as well. Thanks. So over to you, Dr. Mohammed.
Yeah, thank you very much. Thank you very much. Can you hear me?
Yeah, clearly. We can hear clearly.
Okay, I saw the comments or the question about how do we spread this. I guess that's been answered. Yes, there's another one to say, if the premise is that Nigeria's economic grows from here, and we avoid leakages. What are the sustainable and beneficial measures that this government can put in place to ameliorate removal? You see, interesting, that's from Mercy, right? Mercy Amina. It's an interesting thing. You see, like I said earlier on, there's a document by this government which is been in circulation, and that document gives the detail of how they're going to go about what they want to do. Excuse me. This document was put together by an advisory team. Immediately, the president became president-elect. So within the period that he won the election, and now, I think they put some people together, over 15, 16 of them from different sectors, with additional 20-something people to support them. And they put those documents together on how to do everything into the future. Some of them is what was highlighted in my last slide. What they intend to do. And immediately they started having meetings with major oil players, a lot of bank leadership team in Nigeria on measures, beneficial measures that the government put in place to ameliorate this removal. If I go back to my slide before this, so that slide talks about it in greater details. So these are some of the things they want to track. They make sure they want to track what goes out so that they block all loopholes, improve security, investments changes, encouraging investors to come into the country, and giving something to the poor, because in the immediate, they need to give something to the poor to make sure they continue with their investment. Then now begin to look at the medium term and long term. The medium term will be growing our infrastructure, growing our revenue, and beginning to develop infrastructure for people to use into the future. There will be mass transit support in terms of supporting the mass transit scheme for workers to be able to get access to card and some mass transit support for governments, which I understand that close to 200 buses are going to be sent to different locations even by major marketers and oil marketers alone. They're looking at 200 buses. You can imagine what bankers will give them, maybe equivalent to another 400-500 buses. Manufacturing Organization of Nigeria will be. So these things will be shared to people, and people can use a voucher or special card to go into these buses and at a lower rate. These are some of the things that will happen, and as against people trekking long distance now. These are some of the things that I see in place into the future. I guess that answered that question. Refinery will begin production soonest. Will our refined product not be carried away to neighboring countries? It is not likely, because that's from Lukman Adeni, that it is not likely because it's not going to be cheap for foreigners to come and be taking our product now. You've heard from today at the opening statement that 26 million liters have been removed from our figures of startup. So people that are taking our product outside the country, it has reduced by 26 million within the first 2 weeks of this government. That tells us that it's no longer profitable for people to take our product out. That's the same thing that will happen here. I hope that answered the question. How will the small scale business benefit from the removal? The small scale business will begin to see an improved, in a short time, they will enjoy the transportation and some other things. Then they begin to see additional investments opportunities for them. That's why the government will support them in terms of supporting them with things to do more business, because this subsidy removal will have increased inflation. They will have spent their money on maybe more money as a disposable income. But now, government will be able to support them by giving them loans and grants in a small scale for them to be able to continue to do business. So that's the way they're likely going to get. That's part of the program of the government anyway. While thinking about organizing a meeting, I hope this will get to those in power too. Yeah, what we presented here, yes, those in power already have something like this, and even something much more than this, much more detailed than this. Because within the period that we have, about 1 hour, we cannot deal with everything they have. Those are highlights. I'm sure they have it. Amid Bakari, I have an observation. Okay, an observation. Anyway, that's, I have an observation, so suggestion. I think like it is done in most oil producing countries. Interventions such as metering of oil producers and sold in a graphical, digital manner, like it's done in Saudi Arabia. I don't really get that anyway, but if everything is privatized and no more subsidy, there will be no more games. That's what it's saying for sure. Since there's nobody subsidizing anything, and there will be no opportunity for people to play games, everything become private. The essence of this type of talk is to benefit the country as a whole. All right. Ahmed Imam Abdul Rashid, thank for addressing this burning issue that has deviled our country for a long time. However, I joined the meeting quite late. I wouldn't know if I can have a recorded version of this. Nungu Business School will handle that. Ahmed Bakari, the audit of workers at the NNPC and the reorientation, the strength of the character of is very genuine. Teamwork makes the dream works, as the saying goes. If you have to drink from a well, you shouldn't urinate inside it. I think it's reduced with 24 million. I think it's reduced with 24 million. I don't know. Well, when you talk about NNPC reorientation, they don't have choice now because it's now a private company and we're competing with everybody. Now, until now, NNPC imports product and give it to other marketers in Nigeria. Only very few people can afford to bring in product. But now, it will be free for all. It's already stated and defined in details in PIA, Petroleum Industrial Act. So, and I'm sure with what we have seen with CBN, they begin to define how to go about importation of products. And this importation of products just going to be for a while. By the time the factory, the NNPC, refinery starts, we stop importation unnecessary because it doesn't make sense to be importing finished products. Is the government also thinking of blocking other subsidy loopholes, like import waiver that could have negative impact on oil subsidy gain? That's from Suleiman Shehu. Is the government also thinking of blocking other subsidy loopholes? Since we are looking at integrating all the rates, just harmonize all the rates through the CBN, as against having an I and E window, CBN rates, parallel market rates, and FMDQ is now putting everything together. And everybody will have to go to that platform to get their rates now. So there will not be any loopholes, because now, as it's currently exists, there's a loophole, which means I can go to CBN rates, buy at 4 and something, and go and sell at the black market at 7 something. So now those holes will be blocked, following what we have seen the last 2 days. In the last 2 days, the price have jumped from 773 to 665, come down, and we begin to see. So if you want to buy, that's the window. The only thing we need to do is the government must be able to fund that account with a lot of USD for people to be able to have access, not that you go and beg and someone will take advantage of you. How can individuals adjust to the effect of fuel subsidy removal? Well, there's a lot of things that we do in Nigeria, and we are very, very flamboyant about it. We do respect to most of us. Some people have 5, 6, 7 cars, and they now begin to buy up the fuel and go out one car in the morning, go out one car in the evening. I think we have to work the culture of changing it. And for those that doesn't have that, so if you want to go somewhere now, you know how much you're going to spend. Let me give you an instance. If you use a 1.6 liter engine car and you want to fill your tank before, maybe it's just 60 liters. And now, or you know how much you're going to spend, it's going to be 3 times what you spent before. A truck of petrol that used to be 4, 5 million, is now 22 million. Even marketers, people that are selling this product are finding it very difficult. So what people do now is to quickly, if I have 2, 3 friends that have stations, they buy one truck, they contribute 22 million to buy one truck and share one compartment into their tank to sell. The same thing with you. Those of us that have 10 people in an organization that lives around the same area and everybody goes to work with 10 cars. You can come with 2 cars. Fill up the car with 10 people, 5 people per car, and you go to work and you look for a way to subsidize the person. So that makes it easier and cheaper for you. So those are some of the things that we must do as individuals, and be very careful and stop, like they say in local palace, stop the loud. Considering the poor data situation in the country, how does poor benefit from the stipend that the government is planning to do? There's local data can be adjusted. It's not going to be 100%, but surely it's going to get better by the day. Please, we witness how the cost of airtime came drastically down over the years due to pressure of many communication firms based in Nigeria. Will this be obtained in the long run as a fast petroleum? Exactly, it's going to happen. If you go out now with your car, if you want to buy fuel, petrol, different price for different stations. So it depends on how you're able to source your products. If you source your products, you see, there are three categories of marketers. We have the independent marketers, we have the depot owners, and we have the major marketers. See, the depot owners and the major marketers have tank of their own where they import product or they buy product and store. So they have economic of scale. So their products in terms of pricing will be cheaper than the independent marketer that's waiting for somebody to buy from third party to supply. So we now begin to see different pricing level. And it depends on how efficient you are in terms of delivering products into your own depot and transporting to your locations to sell. So the price differential is now there. So this market is open. We no more control like you want to buy diesel now. From one station to the other is different. Do you think it's a good idea to probe the handling of subsidies paid in previous year so that it can act as a deterrent to others? I think so. If we do that, it's better because when you leave people unpunished for an offense, you see people continue to do it. What can the government do to build the confidence of people? A lost still believe that most government policies are much to enrich themselves. See, policies are very clear if you look at them. If government is enriching itself, we will know. The same way we knew for this subsidy. We know some people are just enriching themselves and we have to pull it out. It's only take courage to do it. So which means this leader has been courageous enough to pull out this. What subsequent leaders didn't do, he was able to do it. And he has planned it, he has organized it, he has set it up. He knows Nigerians and he's able to do it. So that's what we need. What monetary and fiscal policies will you note as a quick gain or low-hanging fruit for the government to implement? The first thing is that we must harmonize our market, our exchange market. It is very, very, so that we can now begin to, MPR, we'll have to begin to watch it very well so that it can allow people to have access to loan at a lower rate. So that bank can give people loan at a lower rate to continue production process. So when you give money to people, they begin to produce at a lower rate and now it's difficult to borrow. You can borrow money at 20, 25% or even more than that and begin to do business and make money. It's difficult. But when it is lower, interest rate is lower, you can borrow money, run business, and you'll be successful and grow. So those are some of the things that are quick fix that the government can do. So we can look at the interest rates, can look at harmonizing the exchange market, and those are the quick fix that we can quickly fix. In the same vein, what measure, thinking outside the box, can government implement to improve revenue? You see, even let's stay within the box first. Within the box, before we go outside the box. Let's stay within the box. The first thing to do to grow this revenue, security. Let's tighten, because see, whether we like it or not, this oil has come to stay. Oil will still be around. All of us that are listening on this platform goes, oil will still be relevant. Because if you say oil is not relevant, some pharmaceutical products, some plastic, a lot of other products are got it from oil. So we can't go completely. Even lubricant is from oil. Lubricants that you use in everything, plain use lubricant. Even the robots, people that involved in AI will need lubricant to lubricate them from them. So we get this thing from oil. So oil will still be around for a long time. And we're even discovering more oil in Nigeria. So let's take care of insecurity and produce more oil. Then let's begin to grow our infrastructure with whatever we gain from we remove from this subsidy and put it into developing other areas like agriculture, like services, like entertainment, support people in entertainment. There's a lot of money in that area. So those are the low-hanging fruit that I see, because entertainment industry is established in Nigeria. Agriculture, we have vast land, can grow and develop it in Nigeria. Let's get our states. Let's stop looking at the center. Let our state government put up their thinking card. That's outside the box now. Let's start thinking, state government. Let's begin to ask our governors, what are they doing with the money they get from center? Can they invest it and make money and be rich? Lagos is the 6th biggest economy in Africa. Can we move Lagos to the 2nd economy after Nigeria in Africa. Then can we now begin to move each state out of this poverty to be able to support their people? We also have a lot of mineral resources in Nigeria that can give us millions of naira, hundreds of millions of dollars. We have them. Let's begin to look at those areas, thinking out of the box. So that's I guess that's the last question, except if there's other.
Thank you very much, Dr. Mohammed, for this wonderful moment, and all of you, the wonderful guests that have actually contributed in no small measure to the success of this morning's program. On this note, we'll be drawing the curtain this afternoon. And on behalf of Nungu Business School, I'm just sincerely, Dr. Salaudeen, saying good afternoon, and until we see you again. Thank you very much.